I was on my way to a work-related coffee date when my phone's map app weirded out on me in the car. I was following that little blue line when it disappeared. And then no amount of effort to return it to the screen worked. In fact, at every red light when I would try to reset the entire process, more and more the background map detail disappeared until I was left with a gray on gray grid, which was decidedly unhelpful. I had a vague notion of where the shop was located, but I was surprised at how very quickly my technology-addicted brain went as blank as my screen. I was suddenly in SOS mode with both my device and my person. It turns out I was part of a major and thankfully fairly short-lived outage with my beloved Verizon, and it taught me the value of ensuring I knew where I was headed before I started the journey, which is exactly what Aspiration does for a brand. Hi, I'm Amy Jackson, creative director, award-winning designer, color nerd, and unapologetic brand evangelist. And this is Brand is Not a Four-Letter Word. We're continuing to explore the 3 A's of a strong brand in this mini season, and we're all about aspiration today. Aspiration may feel like the odd man out in this list. Action? Makes sense. Authenticity? Goodness, I hope we're starting to understand this, but aspiration? Brand? Yep. Brand isn't just about documenting where you are or who you are. It also offers a roadmap to where you're going. It shouldn't just reflect where a company is today, it should actually pull the organization forward. Now, I'm the first to admit that aspirational aspects of a brand and the company culture is definitely the overlap section of any Venn diagram. But I'm also one to declare loudly and often that culture influences brand, even as brand drives culture, and in a strong organization, this makes a lot of sense. Aspirational brands align teams, they attract talent, and it creates momentum. So let's start with the biggest question I get when I link aspiration with authenticity. Aspiration isn't pretending. No. It's not pie in the sky dreaming outside of the scope of your organization's goals. It's not playing dress up. It's closer to vision casting, but even then it's something more grounded. Aspiration defines who you are becoming. But to be clear, brand aspiration is not about being bigger, better, richer, faster, or more elite, even if that's what your organizational goals touch on. It's about being a company that allows your audience to become something they want or need to be, and that includes your internal audience too. When we talk about aspiration in branding, we often assume it's about luxury or achievement, but aspiration is really about integrity. Aspiration isn't about status. It's about identity. I thought maybe a few examples would help us unpack this notion, so here are 3. First up is Patagonia. Now, I'm not the most outsidey person, as you know, so the very fact that I even know about this brand tells you they're doing something right. Patagonia's brand aspiration is rooted in their conviction. They're firm in their environmental stance, and they are aspiring to save the earth. So Patagonia doesn't sell jackets, even though I own a zip-up with their label. They sell responsibility. They have made environmental activism the core of their brand, not just a marketing campaign, but an actual business philosophy. They repair gear instead of encouraging replacement. Hello, sales team, are you worried? They donate profits to environmental causes, which granted is a common theme in large organizations, but it's only one part of their efforts. They've positioned their brand around a belief that says, we are in business to save our home planet. That's aspirational. When someone buys Patagonia, more than likely, they're not just buying outerwear. They're buying that solid reputation of quality goods, but they're also following something that has been charged by the company's mission. Patagonia buyers are aligning themselves as people who care, who protect, simply by choosing Patagonia. And they're aspiring to be the solution for people who choose those values over convenience. Patagonia invites customers to aspire to be more conscious, more engaged, more responsible. The product becomes proof of who you are because Patagonia made it who they are. But it doesn't always have to be focused on charitable character. A brand's aspiration can be about giving people who need to achieve a way to do that. Nike does that with their positioning around personal potential. They don't sell shoes. they sell possibility. Think about it. From the "Just Do It" tagline and campaigns that feature athletes who challenge social norms, Nike's positioning centers around their belief in the athlete, in the effort, in the need to overcome. But here's the real aspiration fueling Nike's brand. They define athlete expansively. With Nike, you don't have to be a professional. You just want to have to move. Nike's aspiration isn't about becoming the next Michael Jordan. It's about becoming a stronger version of yourself. It speaks to the part of us that wants to push, to improve, to prove something, even if it's only to ourselves. Nike doesn't sell by asking, "Hey, do you need new sneakers?" Instead, they ask, "Who could you become if you stopped holding yourself back?" So that's belief-driven aspiration. Nike was able to use their brand to connect ambition and identity for their target audience by centering these things within their brand. And finally, let's talk about the Airbnb brand. And I love their whole story, to be honest. I especially love how they took their business that was just solving a lodging problem and aspired to become a brand about belonging. They rooted their aspiration in emotional transformation. We all know the story-ish, right? So Airbnb started out with a dual solution: rent a room and/or make some extra money. But then they did something really interesting, aspirational really. They shifted their messaging from rent to belong. In fact, they honed in on belong anywhere. Suddenly, Airbnb wasn't just about the beds or the space reclaimed and monetized, but instead, they were about finding, making, claiming identity. Airbnb reframed travel from transaction to transformation. Instead of find a place to stay, they invited people to experience connection and culture, to immerse themselves, to see themselves as a global citizen rather than a tourist. And that shift elevated them from utilitarian to aspirational. The product really didn't change dramatically, but the meaning or interaction of the brand did. That's powerful. Aspiration isn't about features. Airbnb shows us a brand's aspiration is about the future self your brand can help someone step into. Patagonia helped us learn how to become responsible. Nike helped us learn how to become relentless. And Airbnb helped us learn how to be connected. So actionable brands don't ask, "What do we sell?" They ask, "How do we help someone be?" Great, right? But how does aspiration move the needle for my business? Is it all just tree-hugging heart hands and commercial gut punches? No. I see how aspiration can feel like that, but it's not. All of the examples I shared impacted their brand and their bottom line. The positioning and the messaging, both key brand assets, were driven from aspiration and affected the company's success, both with their reputation and their profit. In fact, Harvard Business Review noted that brands with clear purpose outperform peers. The research continued by citing purpose-driven organizations foster higher employee engagement and increased customer loyalty. In addition to that, improved financial performance. Harvard also offered us the statistic that it is often resulting in 40% lower turnover. Easier to keep someone than to find someone new. Employees are more engaged when they understand where the company is headed. Aspiration creates internal alignment before it ever creates external desire. But it also affects a company's external audiences because we see over and over that people buy from brands aligned with their values. The global communication firm Edelman created a special report called the Edelman Trust Barometer, in which they found 81% of consumers consider trust in a brand to, quote, "do what is right," a key purchase consideration, with over 70% linking purchases to values, sustainability, and ethical supply chains. In 2025, 73% said cultural relevance boosts trust. And 63% of consumers are more likely to support brands they trust. So yeah, brands need to be aspirational, to be solid, strong, and successful. But what do brands often get wrong in their attempt to aspire? Well, we talked at the start of this episode about not chasing pipe dreams and those things that don't really align with your brand's core character. And we'll talk more about this in our episode on authenticity, but we also have to learn that aspiration must be to solve a problem for who their audience needs or wants to be, not just what they want or need to do or own. It's such a tiny tweak, but it has major ROI. Brands also must take care not to be trend chasers. Don't mistake today's hot topic for your brand's next big aspiration. Once you know who and what you're aspiring to be in the world, don't let conflicting views or priorities or other well-meaning brands, communities, or talking heads tell you how your brand works. Steady on, even in the risk of naysayers. Those just aren't your brand's people, and that's okay. Speaking of trends, it's not just about brand character notions. It's relating to all those chasing aesthetics things too. If you don't know your vision, your brand's aspiration, well, it doesn't work out. We love a good meme. Color of the year is a special gift from Pantone, and your brand's visual assets should reflect who you firmly are ensconced in being and aspiring to be. It can't help you accomplish your goals when it's lost in a shifting sea of today's preferred palette or photography styles or poses. Related, even a rebrand should be considered with care. Brand aspiration is a long game, and while you may find it's time or want to shift your look, your messaging, your arena, even expand or contract your target audiences, that all happens long before your organization should consider new aspiration. So when you choose what your brand aspires to be and allows your audience to become, you want to be sure. Lock that in with care. I do feel it's necessary to add here that if you haven't already settled on a solid brand aspiration, a rebrand can actually help solidify this. In fact, I would say that the biggest oops when considering brand aspiration is that it can feel like such a vibe, when in reality, it's a core business builder, and the practice of an aspirational brand is most successful within brand systems that ensure it remains a top-of-mind philosophy for your stakeholders, partners, and audiences. Now let's flip that coin over and talk about the final mistake I want to talk about today: over-indexing the current state. We can't let fear of change, of playing it safe, or of designing for yesterday's buyer to thwart our mission to build a strong brand. We need to know that it requires authentic, inspired aspiration. Today is the best day to ask yourself, who do your internal and external audiences aspire to be? And how is your organization helping them get there? Are you designing and deciding with that in mind, or just cleaning up assets and offers? One of the best tools to solidify your brand's aspiration is a brand audit. Together, you and I, along with as many stakeholders as you decide should attend, will dive into your organization with a proven interview process. Over 90 minutes, we'll gather data and identify holes, and then you'll receive a digital report from me about your brand's strengths and weaknesses. You'll be able to ensure that you're building a strong, aspirational brand. Because brand isn't a 4-letter word. It's your best strategy and your strongest story. Let's build your brand together. Learn how at brandisnotafourletterword.com, where strategy and storytelling meet design.